Dear learners, we are here today to discuss the topic of fundamental duties as enshrined in Article 51A of the Constitution of India. Duty is a notion which creates moral and ethical responsibilities among the people of the country. Commitment and sense of responsibility are treated to be an essential ingredients in the idea of duty. In India, since Vedic times, the concept of dharma includes duties. We all owe some duties to our family, to the workplace, to the places in the society, and to the state at large. In India, since time immemorial, if a person fails to comply with the duties, the person is being treated as if the person has committed a sin. That was the position of duty in ancient India. Taking that into consideration, the framers of the Constitution inlaid many ideas of duties and senses of responsibilities into various provisions of the Constitution of India. Now, rights and duties are inseparable in nature. It is said that rights and duties are the two sides of the same coin. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, said that true source of right is duty. Roman philosopher Cicero, in his book De Officiis, have bifurcated the concept of fundamental duties into four categories. He said that the duties can be in four ways. Number one, wisdom. Number two, justice. Number three, courage. And four is temperaments. These are the essential requisites of duties of a person to the society and to the state at large. Now, taking that into consideration, in modern world, in a modern concept of state, the idea of duty has an objective. Now, what is that objective? The objective is to reconcile the claims of individual citizens with that of the civic society at large. In a democratic polity, fundamental duties are the foundations of human dignity and national character. To re-energize and to reconstruct the nation, the idea of fundamental duties do play a very important role, very vital role in every country of the world. India, being influenced by USSR, Japan and China, incorporated the chapter, that is part 4A of the Constitution, in the 42nd Amendment Act 1976. Now, this amendment took place on the basis of the recommendation made by Swaran Singh. A committee was established under the chairmanship of Swaran Singh to review the working of the Constitution. The recommendations of the Swaran Singh incorporated the idea of fundamental duties in the Constitution through the 42nd Amendment Act 1976. Interestingly, those amendments took place or being incorporated into the Constitution during a black phase in the democracy of our country. That point of time, it was an emergency which was proclaimed under Article 352. During this period of 1975 to 77, many changes, many amendments were incorporated into the Constitution of India. Now, after the emergency, when the new parliament was established, when the new government came to power, they re-amended those provisions of the Constitution which took place during the time of emergency. And they wanted the re-amendments to take place so that the Constitution can regain its position which was there before the proclamation of emergency. As a result of that, many re-amendments took place. But at that point of time, all the political parties that had existence in the parliament, they came to a conclusion that they will not disturb the idea of fundamental duties, which was enshrined in Part 4A of the Constitution of India in Article 51A. As a result of that, Article 51A establishes the concepts and idea and practices of fundamental duties to the people of the country of India. Now, initially there are 10 fundamental duties, which started with 8, but later on, in the 86th Amendment Act 2002, one more clause has been added to Article 51A, which says K, which was in parlance to keep a parity with Article 21A, which deals with right to education to all. Now, right to education and clause K have a common parlance, are in parity to ensure free and compulsory education to all in between the age of 6 to 14. The idea of fundamental duties was also in accordance to Article 29A of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which says everyone has the duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of the personality is possible. As we all know that India, since independence, became a part of the formation of United Nations, and India is also a part of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. Now, fundamental duties, along with the directive principle of state policies, that is part 4 of the Constitution, directives addresses to the state and duties addressed to the citizens. Now, if the citizens does not care for duties, he should not deserve rights. That was the basic conception of the constitutional morality that is in practice in India. Now, interestingly, state can also make laws to prohibit any act which violates fundamental duties, as the state used to make in cases of putting reasonable restrictions when it comes to fundamental rights, that is part 3 of the Constitution. Indira Gandhi, while this fundamental duties law was passed in the parliament, standing in the parliament, she said that the moral values of the fundamental duties would be not to smoother rights, but to establish a democratic balance. Now, the objective of fundamental rights was to create a democratic balance amongst the people of the country between their rights and their duties. Since duties are obligatory for a citizen, it would follow that the state should also ensure the protection of those duties so the people of the country can exercise their duties in the smoothest possible manner. That was the observation of the Supreme Court in Banuswamy Ashram versus State of Uttar Pradesh. Let us come to the clauses. Article 51A, which says that it is the duty of all the citizens of the country to follow the responsibilities as enshrined in Article 51A of the Constitution. Now here, we need to focus on the word of citizens. It's not to all the persons. Fundamental duties are only applicable to the citizens of the country and not to the non-citizens of the country. Clause A of Article 51 says, to abide by the Constitution and respects its ideals and institutions, the national flag and national anthem. Now, diversity is a very important area, is an essential element of our human life in India. But within the diversity, unity must be manifested. And as a result of that, one constitution, one flag, one form of people, and one form of citizenship is an essential ingredient to uphold the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions. Institutions in the sense, the constitutional institutions, that is the Parliament of India, the Office of the President, the Legislative Assemblies, the Supreme Court, and all other authorities which has been established and created by this Constitution. Now, this Constitution governs each and every institution, each and every people of our country. The freedom fighters, they had sacrificed their lives and their joys in order to ensure that the people of the country are independent and sovereign, and they feel proud of their own heritage. As a result of that, many new ideas came up which are in accordance to the provisions of the Constitution. Many acts were also passed in order to ensure that the people of the country follow the duty to respect the ideals of and institutions as well as the national flag and national anthem. In most of the cases, the people of the country, they do comply with these fundamental duties as enshrined in Clause A. But there are some exceptional cases which also took place since the incorporation of this amendment, which is very unfortunate in nature. One such case was the Bijay M11 versus State of Kerala. This was a case happened in Kerala where a school student was expelled for not singing the national anthem, though he was standing at the time of the national anthem. Now here the Supreme Court said that disrespect of national anthem actually did not happen in this case because the student kept standing but he did not sing. Now the Supreme Court took a shield in this case on the ground or in the Act of Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act 1971, which actually prescribes punishment for dishonoring national flag and national anthem, has been taken by the Supreme Court. Here the Supreme Court said that Article 23(2) of the Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act 1971 does not compel any citizen to sing the national anthem. As a result of that, Supreme Court was quite liberal in interpreting this provision, where it says that even standing up will show respect, but it does not require the citizen, to sing the song. Now, this liberal interpretation will create a precedent in future, and in future it might happen that there are many such cases where people will not sing the national anthem and they will show a disguised disrespect to the national anthem, which is not as per the provisions and the spirit of the fundamental duties as enshrined in the Constitution. It is very much advisable for the petitioners to file a revision petition before the Supreme Court so that the Supreme Court gets another opportunity to review its own judgment. Clause B says, to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. Now, the freedom fighters who sacrificed their lives, they wanted to establish India where the society, there will be no class struggle, no exploitation, no poverty, no disease, no illiteracy. And they wanted an India whereby every one of the Indians should get the opportunity for all-round development. Freedom movement was not only for political freedom, but they wanted to establish a social and economic justice where there will be no discrimination on the grounds of religion, on the grounds of casteism. There will be no cases of separatism, because these all violates the fundamental duties as enshrined in our Constitution. Clause C says, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Sovereignty, unity and integrity are the preeminent national obligations as per the provisions of the Constitution of India. Even the preamble of the Constitution speaks about sovereignty and territorial integrity. Article 19 also lays down reasonable restrictions to freedom of speech and expression and other freedoms of rights, whereby the reasonable restrictions are imposed to protect the sovereignty and integrity of India. Even the Indian Penal Code, there are provisions which says that people or any person who want to take away the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the nation will be punished. That is the significance and importance of sovereignty and integrity as laid down in our Constitution. And it has been treated as a fundamental duty so that all citizens of the country should take care that the sovereignty and integrity of the nation is being protected and it should not be compromised. Clause D of Article 51 says, to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. It means that whenever there is a situation, war-like situation or any sort of situation which is where the common people's cooperation and assistance is required, in that case it becomes a fundamental duty of every citizen to extend their hand of cooperation for the national cause, to defend the country when called upon, and not only at times of war. And at this time, wars are not only fought in the war fields, or it can only be, or it is not something which is only fought between the soldiers and armies. But in today's world, the civilians have a big role in the countries, in countries where where there is war or any sort of external aggression goes on. Article 23, subclause 2 says that the state can impose compulsory service for public purposes. This is also a very important article, where it says that where the state requires, they can send each citizen for any compulsory service wherever there is a requirement. On the last day of the Constituent Assembly sittings, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that we must be determined to defend our independence with the last drop of our blood. This is a very vital statement that was made by Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution of India, on the last day of the sitting of the Constituent Assembly. Clause E of Article 51 says, to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or sectional diversities, to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of woman. So, harmony and brotherhood are the basic features of the Constitution of India. In the preamble also, it is being reflected in the form of fraternity. There is a word in the preamble which says fraternity, which means common brotherhood among the citizens of India. In a very important case of Air India Cabin Crew Association versus Yashwin Merchant, the Supreme Court observed that the retirement age of air hostesses is comparatively less than the retirement age of the male members of Air India. Now, that was challenged on the ground of equality, Article 14 of the Constitution. But the Supreme Court said that no, this is not a violation of Article 14, because this fixation of the age of retirement depends upon the falling physical appearances of women, which is essential for such services. So this is not derogatory to the dignity of woman. That was the observation of the Supreme Court, taking into consideration Clause E of Article 51A of the Constitution of India. In these type of cases, the Supreme Court took a very pragmatic outlook in order to understand the reality and to face the realities. Clause F of Article 51 says, to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Now, interestingly, we are discussing about the new education policy of 2020-22, whereby this cultural ethos of our country that we are maintaining for so long, for more than 5,000 years, should be required to be imparted to the students of schools and colleges. And in accordance to this policy, it is being framed, and it has an impact upon the fundamental duties as well. India, being a country of composite culture, an ancient civilization, a civilizational unity which carried on without a break for more than 5,000 years. Spirituality is the rhythm of national life in India. Many old scriptures, old philosophies have created or are born here in the land of India. India is a country which provided shelter to refugees of all religions across the globe. Now, this ensures our duty from the citizens of the country to value and preserve the rich heritage of this composite culture. Clause G of Article 51 says, to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. Now, this clause is to protect and improve environment. Now, very often we discuss in today's discussions that we need to protect the environment because the world is becoming warm and warm day by day. As a result of that, the lifespan of this earth is getting less day by day. Huge amount of icebergs are melting in the Antarcticas. Mindless and wanton development, only for the sake of development, compromising environment and natural resources, is not good for our environment. So many legislations and executive actions are being taken from the part of the government to ensure that the people of the country protects the environment. There is a very important case, Vellore Citizens Forum versus Union of India, where the Supreme Court attended the concept of precautionary principle and that of the polluters pay as a fundamental duty enshrined in clause G of Article 51A, in consonance with Article 21 to ensure sustainable development. Because we have understood that if this earth survives, then only humanity or living beings will survive. Otherwise, it will not. So every citizen of the country has a responsibility to protect and improve the environment to their fullest extent. The same type of observation was followed by the Supreme Court in Sachidananda Pandey versus State of West Bengal, whereby the Supreme Court said that the policies related to ecology is a matter of judicial review. Generally, the Supreme Court does not interfere into the policies of the government, whether it's a union government or the state's government. But when such policies affects the ecological system of the country, indirectly it impact upon the public at large. In such type of cases, Supreme Court said that yes, the judiciary can have judicial review of such policies of the government. In this case of Sachidananda Pandey versus State of West Bengal. Clause H of Article 51 says, to develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. India is a country where there was no conflict between science and religious belief. In many parts of the world it happened, but not here in India. Here in India, religious belief and science went side by side as a complementary and supplementary to each other. Scientific temperament is very important for reasoning and rational understanding of everything. Superstition or blind faith should be ignored. No citizen should be appreciated for such superstitious or blind belief which does not go in accordance to the scientific temperament of the society. Now, this happened where there are many cases where people of the country, they wanted to focus on religious sentiments without having a scientific reasoning. Now, such belief, if that causes suffering to the other people, then in that case, that sort of belief need to be ignored. And there are various Supreme Court judgments where the Supreme Court has specifically upheld the provisions of the Constitution, particularly Clause H of Article 51A of the Constitution. Clause I of Article 51, it says, to safeguard public property and to abjure violence. Very often we see that whenever there is any sort of strike or bandh or any political movements or non-political movements also, people used to vandalize the properties that belongs to the government or even to sometimes to the non-government buildings and properties as well. Now, this is absolutely a violation of Clause I of Article 51A. Because Article 51A Clause 1 says that it is the duty of every citizen to safeguard public property as if it belongs to their own. So, under no circumstances, vandalism of public property will be tolerated by the government. Clause J, Article 51A, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. Excellence in all spheres. The objective of this clause is to attain excellence in all spheres of life. Individual excellence as well as collective excellence in a competitive world. Fine. So that the best which is available into a human being is being used and properly utilized for the welfare of the society, for the welfare of the nation. We all have some professional obligations. Such obligations can be attained, can be fulfilled if we all give our 100% and if all have an specific objective to achieve the goal with excellence. In one of the case, Mohan Kumar Singhania versus Union of India, the Supreme Court observed that even the civil servants, civil services civil service officers, in this case, they were ignoring training which was meant for their development. So, and there was an amendment to the rule which where it says that if the officers attend such training, they will get promotion, otherwise they will not be promoted. Now this rule, this amendment of that rule was challenged before the Supreme Court. Here the Supreme Court said that even though they are senior officers or even though they are high officials, they should also attend the training so that their excellence can be enhanced. And this is one of the fundamental duties of those officers, to attend such training and to enhance their performances. Now, this has been put as a fundamental duty in this case by the Supreme Court because it is here in Clause J of Article 51 of the Constitution. In another case, in Government of India versus George Philip, the Supreme Court observed similar type of observation that the court will take all matters seriously when it comes to enhancing the capacity, sufficiency, efficiency, proficiency of the people, of the officers who are part and parcel of the democratic governance. All-round excellence can be achieved only if the employees are disciplined and devoted to their duties. Now, the last clause which has been amended, which has been incorporated through the amendment, through the 86th Amendment Act 2002, that is clause K, which says, who is a parent or guardian to provide opportunities for education to his child, or as the case may be, ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. This is a very, very important clause which has been amended, which has been incorporated in order to keep a parity with Article 21A. Article 21A of the Constitution, which is a fundamental right, which says that it is a right of every citizen to get education, free and compulsory education from the age group of 6 to 14. Now, this is a right as well as a duty. Now, right for the parents, and it is also a duty for the parents to ensure or to send their children and wards to the school for compulsory education. And at the same time, it is a duty of the state also to provide free and compulsory to the age group of 6 to 14. Now, this is right as well as duty. Now, without proper education, society cannot develop, the nation cannot develop. As a result of that, so much importance has been given to education for all. Put it in the fundamental rights part, as well as it has been put into fundamental duties, only to make a balance and to make a right and duties, to make it both sides of the same coin. Now, fundamental duties, even though it is here in the Constitution, it is being ignored in several spheres of the system of governance and into the society at large. We, the common people, a big section of the common people, still not aware about the fundamental duties as enshrined in the Constitution. I think this is not their fault because they are not aware of their fundamental rights. As a result of that, there are arguments, there are discussions from different angles of academia and even in the governance of the country that fundamental duties should be taught in schools and colleges as well, so that the students from their very young age, they can understand what is their responsibility, what is their obligation, what is their duty towards the society and to the nation at large. So that whenever they will grow up, they will follow, they will try to understand the obligations as a responsible citizen of the country. Not only the students, in professional life also, in workplaces also, people should be made aware of the fundamental duties. On the Constitution Day, that is 29th November 19, which is celebrated on the 29th in memory of 29th November 1949, when some of the provisions of the Constitution were being enforced. The whole Constitution came into force on 26 January 1950, but in 1949, 26 November, some of the provisions of the Constitution came into force, which is celebrated as the Constitution Day. On that Constitution Day, in all workplaces, there should be a ceremony to take the pledge, and in that pledge, they will include fundamental duties. So people should oblige themselves, should create a sense of responsibility to fulfill the fundamental duties as enshrined in the Constitution of India, so that we can ensure welfare, state, and overall development of the nation as a whole. We know that the whole Constitution of India came into force on 26th January 1950. But before that, some of the provisions of the Constitution was enforced on 29th November 1949, which is celebrated as the Constitution Day of India till today. The whole Constitution came into force on 26th January 1950, which is celebrated as the Republic Day of India. But before that, on 29th November 1949, some of the provisions of the Constitution was enforced, which is celebrated as the Constitution Day of India till today. The whole Constitution of India was enforced on 26 January 1950, which is celebrated as the Republic Day of India. But before that, on 29th November 1949, some of the provisions of the Constitution was enforced, which is celebrated as the Constitution Day of India till now.